let's look at the World Economic Forum. Today is very strategic. The news is the Vice President is there to represent President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is deemed to be one of the keynote speakers on Thursday. He's going to have a session to talk about, some of the critical issues related to Africa, and perhaps Nigeria. Now, what are your expectations now that you have people who should represent the interest of Africa? Our guest earlier talked about the agenda for the meeting, not making reference to the issue of securities in West Africa or Africa as a continent. But now that we have a president who is representing, or the vice president representing the president, what are your expectations from this kind of?
Well, I think the World Economic Forum had become a platform where nations sit down, negotiate, network about economic issues globally, although they had no force for execution in some of these resolutions, just to create a platform to bring to the front burner issues that are affecting the globe, that are of mutual interest to every country around the globe. And of course, membership spans across all the both recognized and non-recognized states in the global scene. And this meeting has been going on for years. At a certain level, the World Economic Forum was actually advocating for a constitutional federation Earth, where, of course, you have a supranational body that really could enforce some of the decisions that come out from these multilateral agencies. But that said, is to say, well, our vice president has gone in there. This is not the first time the meeting is holding, so he has always heard. So if we're saying there's any expectation for us, that will be depending on the bargaining power of His Excellency, the president represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, to be able to look at what opportunity, what new friends to meet, and then, of course, to set the Nigerian agenda, which the president has himself been marketing, as I say, 7 months ago he came into office, and that is to say, Nigeria is open for business. We need partners who will partner with us. There's a whole lot of opportunity around us that can be leveraged by those who have capital. And I think that's much that one will expect. There's no significant difference, because you must understand also that in international politics are usually an extension of your domestic policy. What that means is that every nation goes to Davos and expecting what to get, but they set agenda. Now, the conversation is here. You have some senior partners and junior partners. So where we fall is, where are we going to go to Davos as junior partners, or we're going to also be talking, representing the black race as African leaders? Nigerian is a giant of Africa. Then we must allow that giant to rise and that giant to speak on behalf of the African continent. That, of course, the West has exploited Africa for too long. And some of these issues that are being raised today are raised and, of course, skewed in favor of the Western Asian government economy. And therefore, Africa needs to also be prioritized in terms of opening up of space for African goods and services, to also give us the leverage to play in those areas where we seem to have comparative cost advantage. And I think this, for me, should be the agenda that the Vice President should be putting on the table at that Davos, that we have opportunities that world can explore for the good of the entire globe. Like the President said the last time he was at the United States of America, that Africa, the world needs Africa to survive. And therefore, we must prioritize this.
Earlier, you were talking about what the Nigeria agenda should look like. I would like us to be very specific. Perhaps if you're in position to help the Vice President set the right agenda, what should be the priority, also what you call comparative advantage for Nigeria? In this kind of forum, you have investors coming together from different continents. What kind of comparative advantage will it be for Nigeria? And talking about the Nigerian agenda, what should be on the list, on the table?
Yeah, like I've said, for us as a people, what we really need now, looking at the kind of gap in terms of infrastructure development, we need a lot of partnership with those with capital. And mind you, these are not just government personalities. You also have business people, renowned social activists, and a whole lot of people who are also coming for this conference. So for me, it is the networking opportunity that these afford us to be able to say to people, we have potential and a solid mineral. We need partnership. We need investment in the development of basic infrastructure, whether they be road, seaports, airports. We need a whole lot of partnership in these areas. And we should be able to go to this conference looking out for people who are also looking for places to do business. And then they assure us that where we have created a climate for investment to happen. Because as we speak right now, we cannot really say this is where we'll have a comparative advantage in terms of cost, even in terms of the primary sources of agricultural produce we have. So what we just need is that collaboration or partnership with people with substance who can come and invest in our environment and thereby helping us to solve the social ills around us. And this is critical. We have a population which is the biggest asset that we have. Just a population that is as vibrant, young people, able-bodied, willing and ready to work. So this is what we sell to the people. We're dealing with our local issues, but government is willing to create that enabling environment for the mutual benefit of investors and the country itself. So this is where, for me, the Vice President should be upfront in terms of negotiation and look at where value really lies and see how he can attract more resources. We just need a whole lot of foreign direct investment at the moment. Because all the conversations that are going to be happening around, you see, the agenda is skewed such a way that if you're talking about science and tech, AI and technology, we are not anywhere around it. Yeah, but we are ready for this business to happen. But we need a whole lot of collaboration. I don't think this is an opportunity to be asking countries for loan. Like Mr. President has said in several fora, what we really need is to see these people who come to invest while we delay gratification in terms of benefits coming. So if you can invest in our road and we have clean roads, we have bigger airports, seaports, and then that can boost trade. That creates a lot of employment. Take a lot of our young people off vices and then make them to be very productively engaged as business flourishes in our country.
Now let's look at the agenda for the forum. The first on the list is the issue of global security. Earlier we had a guest who made mention of the fact that references were being made to the tension in the Middle East, and reference is not being made to the issue of insecurity in Africa or West Africa. What do you think the Vice President, like every other African leader who is present at this forum, could do differently to change the agenda on the narrative to ensure that the issues of insecurity as far as Africa or West Africa is concerned are enlisted as part of the talking points for this kind of forum?
Yeah, but you also understand, like I said before, in international politics, what matters to people, especially those who are setting the agenda, is where their interest lies. They have more value in the Middle East than they have in Africa. And that's actually where Africa has not been able to really evolve.
Shouldn't that be a source of worry to African leaders, especially those who are present at the forum, and then source of concern for them?
Yeah, you see, this is what I'm saying. Africa needs to recreate itself. And they don't need any foreign power or body to speak for it. We need a united Africa where we can speak in with one voice. Take, for example, the GCC country. They're speaking with one voice. They are having their own conference. They're dealing with themselves. Oman, Kuwait, UAE, and all the 7 countries of the GCC, they come together and form a strong and solid bloc. And they are helping themselves in terms of development and spread. So they have become an important voice globally. And I think this is where we also need to elevate our conversation in Africa. We are the big boys in Africa. Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, all come together with one strong voice and to pursue one African agenda and not allow itself to be fragmented by the Western power or the Eastern powers. So this has been the problem in African foreign relations, where we are either used by the forces in the West or forces in the East, because we are not significant. So there's nobody who's going to do that for you. We should have a strong African union that transcends one single nationality. In that case, you will not become a significant voice in global issues. As long as we are going to be going to this global event with our different voices in pieces, it will not amount to so much. And that's why you see the focus will always be around the Middle East. And this is because the people in the Middle East have themselves formed themselves into politically, economically, and socially. And doors are open within and among themselves. Travels are easy. Barriers are removed. And everybody is working as one. We need to get to that point in Africa. And then we will be able to actually say to the West that, because some of the problems that we actually found, like your earlier guest said, precipitated from the West. All the conflicts that we have in here, those who have the technology to produce weapons need markets to sell it. And so, but Africans have to come together and say no and speak with one voice. Then, of course, they will be recognized by the great powers.
All right, still on the issue of security, you know, Nigeria has its own peculiar insecurity or security challenges. What kind of collaborations are you expecting the Vice President will pursue in this kind of forum to ensure that the security architecture for Nigeria is better? Could it be in the area of, you know, intelligence gathering, weapons? What kind of collaboration will you be expecting from this kind of forum and the kind of partnership when it comes to the issue of security?
Yeah, but another thing is also to look at it that really looking at the security situation in Nigeria, and I don't think in my own rating that is something that actually worries the West. Because it's also not as deep-rooted as you find in the Middle East. You can see what has happened in Syria since the Arab Spring. Crisis is on. Look at the challenges in Iran, Iraq. All those crises are now becoming real institutionalized. And I don't think that that's our problem as we speak, where you are seeing that states are actually rated to be terrorists in terms of relation. We don't have that in Africa as yet, where you're seeing a government or you're seeing the state or the structure of the state involved in terrorism and creating a whole lot of destruction, as we've seen happen in the Suez Canal attacks. These are state institutions, really not individual terrorists like we have in Nigeria. But that said, is also to look at it that why we are looking for partners, and I think the issues in Nigeria is actually to deal with poverty and take away a lot of hunger, and then you will be able to starve the pool from which these terrorists recruit people. And once you starve them of the pool, then the issue will die by itself. And that's what we need to do. And that's why, for me, the real agenda should be economic agenda. Because once you deal with the economic issues and situation that faces us as a country, we will be able to take a lot of people out of crime. And this, for me, is the issue. This is where Nigeria needs to put its own emphasis on. Because we don't have state-driven terrorism. All we are having is pockets of kidnapping, banditry, and they are all around economic issues. So those local negotiations we should be able to do here, and to assure the international community that we are doing everything humanly possible to make the climate safe for investment.
All right, let's look at the issue of AI, artificial intelligence. It's also part of the agenda for the forum. Now, the plan is to see how AI can be deployed to be a force to achieving economic growth and making the society better. For Nigeria, how can a nation like Nigeria achieve this, deploying AI towards economic growth?
Well, I think there's so much to be done. You know, I was talking about the GCC countries. In the last 5 years, United Arab Emirates has a ministry that is dedicated to artificial intelligence. No science and technology. They call it Ministry of Artificial Intelligence. And all that ministry is doing is to see how can we channel AI for the good of our people. And they've been leveraging these opportunities. And I think this is what we should do, really. You see, when you talk about artificial intelligence and its use in our economy, I think we are not just going to go to the West and say, come and do this thing for us. What we should be doing is to say to ourselves, there's a new trend that's going to drive the world. How do we position ourselves to leverage the opportunities that are within this area? And I think I like what the National Board of Technical Education had done in a circular that was issued last week, that all the Polytechnic, National Polytechnic, offering courses in computer science at HND should break them down into specifics. Maybe that would be the starting point. But we need a structure here on ground as a country where we can deploy the energy of our young people to embrace this emerging technology. And then it will amaze you what our people can do with it. We have quite cerebral people. We need to bring these energies together and build a system. If we do it well, or we channel the right resource and energy into it, we could even beat the West in terms of the development of artificial intelligence. Because we have very creative and innovative people here. What we have not had is that platform and opportunity for these people to express themselves. So one government can give that fillip to what we're doing at the academic level, then we can boost ourselves. We cannot just go to the West and import an AI product, no. We should be able to leverage the technology and create our own here, which of course we can also sell to other countries or even to the West.
That's great. All right. So let's wrap up this conversation with the talk on climate change, the issue of energy. The plan is also to ensure that by the year 2050, the globally, the issue of carbon neutrality has been achieved. How can we localize this agenda as a nation? What should be the starting point for Nigeria and to make this a reality?
Well, I think in the issue of climate change, we have spoken so much about that in here because, you see, when these conversations are ongoing, the West already has created a product that they want to sell. And I think what we should do as Africans is also to negotiate. And I think that's critical. Some of the resources that they are taking away from us, and we tell them, no, we don't want you to take it. We want you to add value to it in our environment rather than take them wholesale. Those are the kind of conversation that we should have because the transition is expensive. And as it is, the West are not really willing to part with resource except to drain the little that is here. One would have hoped that since COP26 in Paris, that the Western country were actually funding these events here in the third world countries or developing countries of the world. But they don't really know so much about it. So I think it's a high time for Africans to actually sit down again and ask themselves, what do we do with what God has given to us? It is our own. They need our consent to use it. And we are going to tell them we are no longer going to sell to you the way we used to sell it. Bring your money to develop it. So it can't be devaluing our people to develop yourself. So there will be mutual benefit in terms of how we derive these resources and use them for the good of the world. But I think the whole idea should be toward global justice, a global equity, where no part of the world is actually left out, and we all develop at the same pace. Because if one nation is left out, the challenge of global security will continue to be a front burner on the global agenda.